Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Life by JMAR. I'm excited to share with y'all my guest. I have been like jonesing out on all of his stuff because he's recently just wrote a book and several books, but his most recent one came out called The Heart of Recovery. And I'm excited to share his heart with y'all. He's an award-winning personal trainer, which that speaks to me. I love that. An author, and he's a speaker. He's an entrepreneur and a former felon and a drug addict. So, we go from high to low with this guy. And so I'm excited to share the story with his short story with y'all today. And he's already on the line. His name, I hope I don't mess his name up. The first part is easy. Doug Bopst, right?
You got it. There you go.
Okay. Because I've been practicing it. I really have. Because I was like, I don't want to ever make anyone ever feel like I don't care because I can't say their name right,
You got Martinez. It's kind of like Smith. It's a pretty common last name. You know what I mean?
Especially in Texas. You have no idea, Doug, how many Jennifer Martinez's there are in Texas.
Really?
Like anytime I'm ever look up, have to look something up I'm at Ulta or something. I know it's a makeup place. I know you could really care about this. If I have to they look me up by name, it's like they always turn the computer around. They're like, okay, so there's a lot of Jennifer Martinez's in Texas, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I've been waiting to have you on because I follow you on Instagram and social media, and I just saw I've actually been able to listen and see all of your recent interviews and your story of just transformation from literally going from 14-year-old kids starting out with marijuana to a massive drug addict. Am I even saying it right?
Well, yeah, I was a horrible drug addict. I started smoking pot when I was 14, and one thing led to the next, and I was self-medicating, some trauma and some anxiety and depression with drugs to escape. And you can only do so much of that before you end up falling into the depths of other drugs. And for me, it was Oxycontin, and I had a $200 a day painkiller habit that crippled me. And eventually, I got incarcerated, which really saved my life.
It did. And I'm excited about that. And so here's the thing. Before we get into that, I kind of want to start with something that I was, I don't know. I just wanted to ask you a few random stuff that I haven't heard on other interviews that I've listened to that I was really interested about, because I feel like in fitness, what we do now, what you're in now, it's never about what to do or how to do it. It's always about the thing that's stopping you from doing it. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah. So with your with everything that you went through, it obviously didn't start at 14. It started before that, and it's always usually something that we speak to ourselves that's a lie. That comes from some feeling that we have, or like in your instance, I've heard on your several interviews, you're always saying you thought you were the fat kid. You were the kid. Why did my parents have to get divorced? Why did my parents the victim, right? And that's what led to you trying drugs. So it's getting over that stuff, And so the question I have for you is, you talk a lot about the recovery, and I want to get into that and all the processes that you went into, but you don't talk a lot about your dad. And I was wondering if there was something in there that you had to have to go through with healing too, in order to get to where you're at.
Yeah, my dad and I have always kind of had a strained relationship. Mm-hmm. We didn't get along growing up too much. And when I got kicked out of my mom's house on my 16th birthday and went to his house to live full time, I was devastated because I hated going up there. And, I made a lot of choices back then that led me to where I was as far as getting incarcerated and being addicted to drugs and selling drugs and all that stuff. But he made some really bad choices in the way he handled some things as well. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of it is, I've kind of forgiven him in a way that I don't let it weigh me down anymore. It doesn't today, I don't let it weigh me down. I don't think about it in a negative light that it just paralyzes me from moving forward. Right. Cause we all know that when we hold on to grudges and pain like that, it keeps us from moving. If we can't change, I can't change that, right? I can't change how we handle things. I can't change how I handle things. I can only change how I handle things going forward. And it took a long time for me to develop that kind of mindset I mean, having faith in God and knowing that it was all part of God's plan and just being cool with that was definitely a big piece of that.
Growth, a lot of growth.
Yeah, and it just came down for me. And again, I don't have any kids, so I know when you have kids, it's different. It was like I only really want to surround myself with people that bring the best out in me and people whose energy I can feel that they just love me unconditionally. They challenge me to be better. They support me unconditionally. And that's just kind of how I've kind of handled everything with my family going forward. Not to say that, there's not times where I think about if things were different, but, it's not like before where I would harp on it for a long time and be like, why is things different, and be the victim. Because I remember having the victim mentality, where that got me, right? Because you mentioned, why I started using drugs, and it was like the victim of like, why am I the fat kid? Why am I being picked on? Why am I not feeling enough? Why am I not gifted athletically? Why don't I have luck with girls? Why this? Why that? And that led me into wanting to escape, right? To hide all that shame, right. To hide all that fear, to hide all that anxiety, to hide those insecurities in the fastest way possible, right? Because as human beings, we don't love pain. And especially like when we're a kid, right? When we're teenagers, we don't know how to manage these emotions anyway. So when the moment you get pain, you hit pain, it's like, boom, we need to flip a switch to heal it as fast as possible. And, it's funny. I think about that now as like knowing what I know now, like wishing I knew then what I know now about pain and how to manage your emotions and stress and the better ways you could do it. I mean, I think there's much better ways to do it, but I also know that it's really challenging when you're a 14, 15, 16, 17 kid. With all that being said, to be like, when you tell a kid to go take a walk instead of like smoking a cigarette, if you tell a kid to go call like his mentor or call a person he trusts instead of like going and having a shot of vodka, whatever it is, right? So I get that side of it too. It's not easy.
Well, pain increases capacity, and in everything, right? And the pain that you went through, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think sometimes we get caught up in holding on to, well, it's not fair. It's not fair that I had this as a child, growing up, and you've obviously overcome it. What would be your advice in how to overcome, because pain, when you have pain from your parents, like that's like a really deep one. That's one that it's lots of times it ruins people's lives, and it almost ruined yours.
Yeah.
But God, God's our Father, and He's our Heavenly Father, and I truly believe that, and I know that that's a big part of it. But what would be your advice to someone who's like, oh my gosh, I have that same pain and I want it to go away? Like, how do you do that?
It's hard. The easy thing to do, and I did a lot of this in jail, the easy thing to do is to blame everybody else for your problems. Say, woe is me, get depressed about it, and, just kind of throw it under the bed, right? And forget, but it's still deep down inside of you, and it's still going to come out, right? Because you can't just throw your pain deep down and keep it there. So that's the easy thing to do, because it's easy to blame somebody else. It's easy not to look in the mirror. It's easy to say, okay, it might not be my fault. And it's not my responsibility either. That's the easy thing, right? The hard thing is looking at yourself in the mirror and be like, all right, what can I really control out of the situation, right?
Yes.
I can't change how people treat me. I can't change what people say. I can't change how people view me. What I can change is how I view myself, what I do, and like how I respond to other people. Those things I have control over, right? And then just kind of thinking of it like, what lessons did you learn? Like using it as a positive tool to learn to grow. Like, what lessons did you learn? Like for me, I learned how I wanted to be a parent, right? I learned about unconditional love and what that really means, and like why I didn't feel unconditional love and what that can look like, right? And I also learned about how the effect that divorce can really have on a kid long term, and the effect that bullying and being picked on and feeling less than can have an effect long term. And if you don't manage it and deal with it in a healthy way, you're going to really be in some trouble down the road, because you're going to end up having to deal with it in unhealthy ways. Like I always tell people, you have two choices in how you deal with trauma, stress, and emotions. You can deal with it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. Either way, you're going to have to deal with it somehow, right? But one's going to serve you in a positive way. One's going to serve you in a negative way. And thinking about, the more time you think about it, the more it's going to upset you. So if you were to spend like your time thinking about how depressing your relationship with your parents is, or how depressing your relationship with a loved one is, or whatever your situation is, and you just spent all day thinking about how they wronged you, how they shamed you, how they hurt your feelings, you know, and how bad it is, you're going to be one depressed person, right?
Yeah.
One pissed off person, right? But if you look at the positive out of it, right? Maybe what it taught you, you know, the lessons you've learned, you know, some of the good in it, or whatever, however you want to view it, your mindset changes. And I'm not saying you can't just, but and there's a difference, I think, between taking that negative situation and it's not, you don't just paint it positive, and you can't be like, well, it was all positive, because that's not realistic either.
No,
But
it's not.
having a positive outlook on the negative situation will help you get through that negative situation more so than having a negative outlook on it would.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins has this quote. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I love Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
but
me too.
he says something along the lines of, you know, if you're going to blame everybody for everything they did wrong to you, you better blame them for all the things they did right to you as well, because they made you into that whoever you are. Because odds are, when you get through adversity, when you get through pain and you use it to your advantage, not your disadvantage, you're going to come out stronger. You're going to come out wiser. You're going to come out more loving, empathetic, understanding, and you're going to be able to relate to people, right? Think about like how you can use whatever experience you're going through and what's painful for you to be a blessing, not only to yourself, but somebody else.
Yes.
That's what life's about, right?
Yeah.
And I always say,
hard when you're in that moment. It's hard, but yes, you're preaching to my soul, brother. Keep going.
You know, what I was going to say is, like, we all have pain in some shape or form, right? If you say you've never experienced pain in your life, you're lying. And we can either hold on to it, and the more pain just kind of sits in us, if we don't like get it out or use it, it's just going to rot us. It's going to rot our relationships. It's going to rot our workplace. It's going to rot our physical health. It's going to rot our emotions. It's going to rot other areas of our life, right?
It's like being in prison.
Yeah, you're in your own prison, right? And it's going to start to stink. It's going to be like trash. It just stinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, you got to recycle that pain. You got to use that pain as motivation. Like for me, one of my biggest motivators when I first got into recovery and working out was like thinking about all the people who ever made fun of me, or the time how people treated me, or all the mistakes I made, or the times I thought life wasn't fair, all the things that really made me upset. And I used that to fuel it into something more positive, whether that was me running, or me working out, or me just being so motivated to stay clean because I knew that I wanted to prove everybody else wrong. And that's using it in a positive way. And then you're able to then be a blessing to somebody else.
Yeah.
And,
well, and that's what happened. That's a great segue into your cellmate who changed your life, and focus on fitness and stuff. Cause you were already in a prison before you got to prison. I mean, you were in it from the age of, 5 when the divorce happened and all the pain started. That's when, I mean, like
I was bankrupt. I was spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically bankrupt by the time I got to jail.
Oh yeah. You were 20 and you were like dead.
I was completely broken. I was hopeless. I was in the depths of despair. I was suicidal. I didn't think I was going to live to see my 25th birthday. I mean, I mean that.
Yeah. I believe it.
Jail saved my life. And I can't thank it enough. I can't thank the judge enough for sentencing me.
Isn't that great? And did you ever send him a letter? You're like, hey, thanks.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a letter, but what ended up happening is when I went to court in September of 2008. I got sentenced to 5 years. He's 5 years. He suspended everything but 90 days, 5 years probation, 200 hours community service, all kinds of fines and drug classes. But he looked at me in the face. I was 20 years old, and he said, Doug, this felony conviction is going to haunt you the rest of your life. This was like 10 years ago. I mean, over 10 years ago. And this stuff was a lot more stigmatized than it is. Like if you were a mom and you just caught your kid with like a bunch of pot, that would be like, if you told her that was going to be the worst thing that ever happened, they'd be like, praise God. Like, that's amazing. Right. Cause it's so much, there's a lot worse stuff out there now. So, getting back to my point, he said, but if you complete everything without messing up, no missed probation appointments, no missed drug tests, you do all your community service on time, you have a job, you do everything, like no mess ups, none. He's like, I'll take the felony conviction off your record at the end of the 5 years of your probation and give you the PBJ, the probation before judgment. And like I said, when I was in court, I was high. I was going to get high when I left. I didn't think I was going to live to see my 25th birthday. I ended up completing everything, which we can get into after we talk about jail, and ended up writing him for modification of my sentence. And I was able to stand before him in court, and he took the felony off my record. And he was just like, he was so happy to see how the judicial system actually helps somebody instead of hurting them. And, I just didn't realize how forever my life could change in a matter of seconds from being shackled as a felon to now being a free man, being able to vote, being able to, not check a box that I was a felon and everything else that comes with that, being able to travel out of the country, not having to call somebody and tell them that I'm leaving the state. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it was the discipline though of your cellmate that started that transition. I think it all starts with discipline.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be disciplined at first. Let me tell you. I mean, when I got in there, I detoxed cold turkey for about 3 weeks of OxyContin.
What is that like? I'm so sorry to bring that up. I mean, like, what is that like? I can't.
I mean, you're sweating profusely. You're vomiting uncontrollably. You're going to the bathroom. You have bowel movements that you can't control.
Do they put you in a separate place away from others?
No.
You have to deal with that in front of other people?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
wow. It's not like you're in you're in jail. And it feels like you're trying to crawl out of your own skin. Like when you have that, like, have you ever had that feeling when you've been really anxious for something and you just can't, you're stir crazy?
Yeah.
Like weeks. That's just how it is, like the constant feeling.
Is it like nausea? Constant nausea too?
Oh yeah. And then plus you have to come to terms with the fact that your life is conformed now to this small box, right? And you can't go where you want. You can't talk to whoever you want. You can't eat what you want. You can't see what you want. You can't do any. You have all your freedoms are gone, right? Yeah. That was one of the things I really took for granted. And so I ended up getting transferred to this different dorm and area, and which is where I met the guy who changed my life. And I remember when I first met him, he was sitting at the Scrabble table, and I literally came in and he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I just had shared with him about my felony charge that I was in there for, and he told me a little bit about his story, and he kind of looked like I guess it kind of seemed like I wasn't the type, so to speak, to be in there, because just I don't know, I was so scared when I was in there. And then that night I saw him working out like crazy, and we're both in the fitness business. This guy was like a more jacked version of Brad Pitt from Fight Club. Literally doing like thousands of push-ups, all these pull-ups, running like hours, like climbing the rails, and I'm like, this guy like on like any kind, like what kind of drug is this guy on, right? And I remember him saying to me, "You're gonna work out with me one day." I was like, "Yeah, bull crap," right? Because at the time I could have been a model for Pillsbury. Like I was so overweight, and I was just fat. I was like 40% body fat,
swollen, and just unhealthy, and just feeling like poo.
Yeah, and I just had like as bad as you could feel about yourself, I felt worse. Like that's how I felt. And I remember one night after him like bugging me enough about it, I decided to give it a try and work out with him. And I remember getting down to a push-up, couldn't do a push-up, couldn't do one for my knees, could hardly walk because I was smoking cigarettes and all that other stuff too before I got into jail. And I just felt like that was like literally God brought me down to my knees in like so many different ways. Like not just like from physically, but mentally. I was like, what the heck have I gotten myself into that now I can do a push-up from my knees in front of a bunch of grown men? I just felt like that was like I was like, what do I have to lose? So I decided just to give it a try. Consistently, he trained me in there every day while I was there. And by the time I left, I was able to do like a set of 10 push-ups and run a mile. And I felt this click that exercise was going to help replace the addiction I had to drugs. Not because of the push-ups and the sit-ups, so to speak. It was about how they made me feel, the increase in self-confidence, the increase in self-esteem. I was sleeping better. My energy was better. I was happier. I just felt like I could set a goal. The ability to set a goal and achieve it is just like that's all like stuff that we know helps your mindset, helps your self-confidence, and being like dedicated and doing something like consistently for myself was something I'd never really done. So like sticking to something was something I never did. And
you were accomplishing it and you were excelling.
Yeah, and then once I started really seeing results, I kept with it, because we all know like once you start seeing results, that the dopamine release comes and you feel like you're getting somewhere, so you want to keep going with it. And but I remember like at first I was just whining all the time and blaming everybody, like I was saying earlier. And he just said, you can be a man or you can be a wuss. He's like, be a wuss. You can go cry in the corner, blame everybody else and say, woe is me, da, da, da. He's like, most people do that. He's like, be a man, look yourself in the mirror. You made the choices to get yourself here. No matter if it was your fault, whatever happened in your past, he's like, you made choices and you're here. He's like, so if it's up to you to change, nobody's going to change you for you. So you have to change. And that stuck with me. That mindset still sticks with me today about like, it's, life sucks and it's unfair and it's terrible. Sometimes there's going to be struggles every single day, but it's up to you to change. Like no one's going to change you. right? I mean, they will like indirectly in a not so good way if you don't work on yourself. But I cried the day I left jail because I felt like this guy had unconditionally changed my life. And fitness was obviously a huge tool of that I chose to embrace while in jail. I mean, I could have sat in there for the rest of my sentence and not taken him up on his offer, but I just felt like I felt something being called to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was the Spirit of God. I'll tell you that. And I think that God used him. I think God uses anything he can to, especially when we have a gift. And I've told you before we hopped on that you definitely have a gift to inspire and encourage people. And your message is so strong, and it's going to be life-changing to so many people, both young and old, that, the devil did a really good job of trying to take you out. And God brought the right people at the right time when you're at your lowest of lows, and took you to a higher place. So you cried. That cracks me up, because I've heard that a couple of times in a few of your interviews. You cried when you left jail because you were.
Well, I felt like this guy forever changed my life, and I felt like, what was I going to do without? I literally was like, what am I going to do without you? Like, how can I repay you? And he gave me a workout plan that I still have framed in my place. It's in my family room, so I never forget where I came from. And it's always a reminder of where I was. So anytime I think about woe is me, or I have so far to go, or I just remember where I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago that I was literally in the depths of despair, had no idea where I would be by now. I didn't think I would be living to see this age. So it really humbles me. And I asked him, I was like, how am I ever going to repay you? And he said, just pay it forward.
Yeah.
And just don't mess up,
So what do you think? So what's your relationship like with him now?
I mean, we had a relationship. I mean, there's no ill will between us, but he got out, and we ended up grabbing a workout together a few times, and I was able to actually do his workout and keep up with him, which was cool. We actually met up, and then I think he got himself off track a little bit. I don't know, and so I just had to I didn't cut cords. I still never forget what he did for me. I dedicated my first book to him. Anybody I talk to about my experience in jail, I say that he was the angel that saved my life.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing now is because of him. I mean, that was really what led me into faith, was like, man, this guy, helped use fitness to change my life in jail. Now I'm helping use fitness to change other people's lives. Like, I can't do that on my own. And the minute I think I can, that's my ego getting in the way. And that's where I get myself in trouble.
Well, that's etching God out. That's what ego is.
I know, right? So, but yeah, he was obviously a huge part of my life. And it was the first person that loved me unconditionally, like no conditions, right? Like, I didn't know him anything. He came in there and just said, you know what, Doug, I'm going to train you every day. I'm going to help you. I'm going to hold you accountable. And then I got committed to it, because commitment's everything, not just in recovery, but in life. Like, if you're not committed, good luck, because there's going to be times where it's, like I said earlier, there's going to be struggles. Life's going to get hard. Adversity is going to get in the way, but commitment is like doing the things you need to be doing when the initial motivation wears off. And because life's going to throw you curveballs all the time. Yeah. And these days I didn't feel like working out. There's days I don't feel like working out today, right? I'm a human being, right? I think people, I'm sure you get this as trainers. They think, oh man, I'm sure you eat like chicken and broccoli 100% of the time, and you run and you work out 4 hours. I'm like, are you being serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
or we have a special motivation or something,
Yeah.
We don't.
So, but I just always think about that in my mind. I'm like, what am I fighting for? What's my bigger purpose? Why am I doing this? What's my long-term plan? And I remember how I felt when I didn't work out. I remember how I felt about myself when I ate like crap. I remember how I felt about myself when I was the victim, when I hung around crappy people, all that stuff. And it motivates me to keep going, because I never want to be that person. I remember that person, and I think I've lived 2 different lives. Like, literally, not in a weird way. I literally feel that I died in jail.
Yeah.
And I had several friends physically die before I went to jail, and so I'm really thankful to be alive. And I think God kept me around to help share my story, to help inspire people. I mean, I'm not a guy who's going to sit there and yell. Like, I think I'm a motivational speaker, so to speak, but I don't yell. And I'm a human being. I just share authentically, and I just try to be as relational as I can. I still make mistakes. There's still days I don't feel good. There's still days I'm burned out, but it's how I manage those emotions, which is different. Because I think I was talking to a coaching client earlier about this. we attach a behavior to an emotion, right? So if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling depressed or you're anxious or you're angry, many people's initial behavior is to get a glass of wine, or it's to go and spend money, or it's to yell at somebody, or it's to whatever. I can throw a million things out there that give you instant gratification, but don't solve the long-term problem. But if we learn over time, not like, I mean, it takes time, not days, but like months of reattaching a behavior to an emotion, where if you, instead of the next time you get angry, you meditate, or instead of the next time you get, stressed out, you go for a run. I mean,
you replace it with good stuff.
Yeah, that over time, your body, your brain chemistry will reevaluate how you handle stress. Like, people ask me now if I get triggered. I don't get triggered by drugs. Knock on wood. I have not had a craving for drugs in a decade probably.
I know why, though. It's because you know who you are. Before, you didn't know who you were, and you were trying to hide. You were trying to not. Now you can walk boldly in your faults, like in your mistakes. Like, you're okay with that. Where before, it was an insecurity, and you didn't know who you were in Christ, and so you had to try and hide it, and so you would go for things that would hide that. Now you know exactly who you are. You know you have faults. You know that you know how to implement the habits that are needed to keep staying on the right path, right? I was reading in scripture this morning in Timothy, and it talked about, it applies to this. It talks about the physical training has some value, but faith has value for all things. And so what you did is you started that physical thing, and then you covered it in faith. And that's why that book that you wrote, Faith, Family, and Fitness, it starts with faith. And it's the foundation for everything, and it covers it all. Yeah, fitness is important, nutrition's important, lifestyle behaviors or habits are important, right? But all of it is covered by faith if that's what you have your foundation in. So that's why you don't have those triggers. And that's, it's kind of, that's what I think is why,
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I still get stressed. There's still times I'm depressed or anxious. I mean, yeah. But it's like when I get those emotions, my first reaction internally isn't to go smoke a cigarette. It's not to have a drink. It's not to smoke pot. It's not to this. I mean, my first reaction is, who can I call in my life that will be able to help me through the situation? It's, should I go for a run? It's how can I focus on the solution and not the problem? It's like I'm more proactive. I'm not as lazy about it. I think part of it is I was lazy. So like when I would have an issue, instead of me actually doing something about it, I'd be like, all right, what's the quick fix to make me feel better now? And then you realize that cup gets empty really, really easily, right?
Right.
It is so important. But for me, it was 5 years into my recovery where I found faith, and fitness led me to faith. Fitness inspired me to hang out with better people. Fitness inspired me to change my nutrition. Fitness inspired me to give back. Fitness inspired me to feel better about all this stuff that fitness can do. Yeah. I was talking to a really close friend of mine about it, and he's been a mentor of mine, and he was just sharing how there's 4 different pillars of fitness. And he was sharing this. He said there's your physical fitness, your spiritual fitness, your emotional fitness, and your mental fitness, right? There's 4. You can be mentally fit, spiritually fit, and emotionally fit, but you can't be physically fit. Like, they don't make you physically fit. Mm-hmm. But if you're physically fit, it can improve your spiritual fitness, your mental fitness, and your emotional fitness.
That's good.
I like that. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to recognize all that stuff, because, fitness and life are so, if you're doing fitness for the right reasons and you're doing it to really improve your life, to improve other people's lives, it can be such a game changer, because, like I was saying, commitment is so important. Being able to set a goal and achieve it is really important. Being able to have dedication and persistence through stuff, being able to go through things when things get tough, because we all know it's very depressing when the scale doesn't move, or when the numbers don't go down, or your weights don't go up when you're lifting. But, being able to go through that when during the adversity, and just keep going no matter what, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and having faith that you're heading in the right direction, and knowing it's part of God's plan. That's so relatable to all other areas of life.
Everything.
And you just got to keep fighting, right? And the thing is, in fitness, you have to fail to get better. You have to fail to get stronger. You got to fail to get faster. Yep. You got to like literally like be huffing and puffing on like outside running to know that, you know, you're running harder or longer than you normally do.
Yeah.
In life, right? We're huffing and puffing a lot. We're falling down. But the thing is, like, when other areas of life, we fall down and we just stay down, right? And we just got to know that it's okay to fall down. What's not okay is to stay down.
Well, I think the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's why I think fitness is it has got such a bad rap of like, you have to go to the gym for an hour this many times a week and all this structure. And my message is, okay, wait, no. What is your life like? What does your life look like? Like what can we do to bring fitness in and make it fit into your lifestyle to where it makes you feel good? It's like you said earlier, attaching that feeling to it. Like I don't want to eat pizza right before a big workout, because if I eat pizza right before a big workout, I'm not going to want to work out, right? So if you attach that feeling and go, okay, this is what my schedule is like today. These are the things I have to do. These are the people I get to impact. I get to get on a podcast with Doug and talk to him. I'm going to fuel my body all morning long with good things so that good stuff happens in this. And you're just saying, it's just like persevere, get through it. And how you do that and your fitness is going to bleed into everything in your life. I agree. Totally.
I mean, what are the main reasons people don't work out? It's time, it's busy schedules, it's confidence, it's injuries or whatever. And then I always flip it around and say, what if I told you that fitness would, reduce your risk of injury? It would help you with whatever injuries you have if you're exercising, properly. What if I told you you'll manage your time much better because your mood will be better, your energy will be better, your sleep will be better, your relationships will improve because you're feeling better about yourself. And we all know if you're feeling better about yourself, it spreads into other areas of your life. And then what if I, also told you that if you work out and you're feeling better, your motivation to do other things is gonna be there too. And I think in fitness, like if you're working out, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
Like, whether it's like trying a yoga class for the first time, which I'm guilty of, I know I need to do. I'm getting back into yoga, or whether it's working out like for a little bit longer than you did the time before, or whatever. It's just going to the gym for the first time, like. And life's uncomfortable. Like life's going to be uncomfortable a lot.
It is.
And the more you can kind of sit through that and know that like storms are going to come, but it's like, how are you responding to the storm? Are you somebody that like just lets like the rain just pummel you and you sit there and like lay there like drowning in the rain? Or are you somebody who puts the umbrella up and knows how to respond in a positive way, focus on the things you can control, stays positive, surround yourself with great people, works out, and has faith in God's plan? I mean, one of the things I want to touch on, you bring up faith, is like for people here who get scared by that word. 'Cause I know people who get scared by the word faith, right? And they're like, they get like freaked out because it's like, oh my gosh, like religion, no.
I'm not good enough. Yeah.
Right? Here's the way I think about faith, right? Faith and fear are both expectations of something happening in the future that haven't happened yet, right? Yep. Faith is expecting it to be a positive thing, and fear is expecting it to be a negative thing. Now, why would you want to expect something negative to happen if you don't even know if it's going to happen? The same with faith. But also, like, imagine you're standing in a dark, dark tunnel, right? And faith is believing you can't see anything, is believing that there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know when, but you know that if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and walking forward, you're going to see light at some point. Mm-hmm. Where fear is you don't believe there's ever going to be any light. There's going to be nothing. So you just stand there, that same place, that same position, or even you walk backwards where it gets even darker. Mm. That's what faith is, right? It's like believing not only in something greater than yourself, it's believing that there's a purpose out there that's greater than you, that's controlling the trajectory of your life. But it's also like being positive that you're going to accomplish great things in life, and being positive that whatever chance you take is going to either end up being a lesson or a blessing for you to be able to improve yourself. And, I think like, if you, and it's okay to make mistakes. If you never made a mistake, it means like you didn't try. And if you didn't try, it means you never took a chance. And if you never took a chance on yourself, it means you didn't believe in yourself. You didn't have faith, right? Yeah. So I think it's important for people to just keep taking chances, keep falling down, keep getting back up. I mean, it beats being paralyzed in fear your whole life and then living with regret towards the end of your life that you didn't take the chances you knew you should have taken.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to me. I love that vision. I love that vision. I like, because I'm a visual person like that. And so that's a really great way to explain it, and just in a because that's the thing about religion is I don't even like using that word, because to me, religion is law. And when Jesus did what he did for us, he broke that. And that's why we live under grace, and thank God for that grace. I just did a podcast last week and talked about it. I was like, we have this podcast every Wednesday called Soul Sisters, and it's with my friend Essie from New York. And I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, I have to apologize a lot because I'm a bad person. Like, I would be a really bad person if I didn't have God in my life, because I think people think they have to be like this pristine person in order for God to love them. And what they don't understand is God loves us in our brokenness. And like when you were at your lowest of lows and you didn't think you were going to live or survive, that's when he was with you the most, and I don't know. I don't feel like your relationship got better with God because you got clean.
No, I mean, my relationship got better with God because he broke me. I was broken enough where I knew that there was no other choice. I mean, I was successful as a trainer. I've been in the newspaper a lot. I had been on TV. I had done this. I'd done that. And I thought that's what success was, right? Was making good money, being good looking as a trainer. And it got to a point where that cup got empty quickly too. Not as quickly as like the drugs and everything as far as gratification, but it got empty fairly quickly. And what ended up happening was I had trained a guy who was a pastor at a non-denominational church, and he was like, "I'm on, man." He's like, "You got to come to church with me." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm going to hell. I'm on that." All I knew was if I was good, I was going to heaven. If I was bad, I was going to hell.
Mm-hmm. That's religion,
right? That's like what religion is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I'm going to hell for putting you through this workout," because we were putting through like a tough workout for something, and he kept just tugging on me. It was very like, he wasn't like jamming Jesus down my throat, like, right? But he was just I was like, something different about this guy. I was like, why are you always so happy?
Yeah,
like,
joy, peace.
You know what I mean? And then finally I got to a point where I was just on a run with a mentor of mine, and he's like, "Man, you gotta have some faith in your life. You gotta have," and it was another guy tugging on me, you know what I mean? And finally because I had a lot of regrets still from my past, like whether it was the broken relationship with my parents or the choices I made or just losing a decade of my life. And I mean, almost a decade, I guess, 7 years that I was pretty heavily involved with drugs, and not going to college, like all this stuff. I had regrets, you know what I mean? And
you had to forgive yourself.
Right. And so what ended up happening was I ended up, calling my client and just saying, "Hey man, I think I'm ready to try this Jesus thing." And I remember into his office, like, praying my life to God. And I said something. It was like, I just accepted Jesus, my Lord and Savior. And I know that he died for my sins and da-da-da. And I felt like the same monkey that I felt come off my back when I first started smoking pot. Like I literally felt come off my back that day. I can't make this up. And I was just talking to my mom yesterday about this. I remember going outside of church and calling my mom for the first time in my life, like authentically apologizing to her. Meaningfully. And for me, like, I knew she made a lot of bad choices in the way she handled stuff, and I made a lot of bad choices as well. But I hadn't really fully come to terms with apologizing, like sincerely apologizing. And then from that day on, I was on a mission. Like I was purpose driven. I wasn't Doug driven. I was purpose driven. And I don't mean
the Spirit of God is driving you.
And I was just all of a sudden like, I want to help people. I want to share my story more. Yeah. I want to help people in recovery use fitness to change their lives. And that was like my purpose, right? Was I felt like I was kept alive for a reason. And I just kept praying and praying. I got more involved. But what I really helped me with, and this is like what I tell people with what faith and God is about for me, I realized that everything in my life happened for me and not to me. I was no longer the victim. I was the victor. I wasn't proud of I'm still not proud of all my choices. I don't regret. I'm not proud, but it doesn't mean I regret it, of all the stuff I did. But I know God was, because it was part of his plan for me. It's like my verse is like Genesis 50:20, where he says like something along the lines of, I intended to harm you, for my own good so that you could be healed to help other people. It's something like that. But it pretty much says, for me to make my mess into my message, pain into purpose, right? And
well, look at Paul.
Right.
Paul was like killing Christians. He hated Christians, and God used him to write pretty much the whole New Testament. And it's the most motivational stuff you'll ever read. You said you like Tony Robbins and Todd Durkin, all those people. Everything that they teach is from Scripture, whether
and Todd's
refer to it or not.
And Todd was the guy I'm referring to. Who was like really pushing me to have some faith. I mean, he wasn't like jamming down my throat either, but he was like, I think you think this is missing from you. And
yeah,
and then what I also noticed was I started noticing little things. I started noticing like different ways God was in my life. Like the day that I went to court to get the felony conviction off my record, I was on the front page of the health and wellness section of the Baltimore Sun, the newspaper here, on the front page, like that day. Like I couldn't make that up. And then like it just so happened that my roommate, her son, is a criminal defense lawyer, and he represented me. It just like people were placed in my life.
Favor.
You know what I mean? And then the guy in jail, like he helped use fitness to change my life, and now I'm helping other people use fitness to change theirs. I can't make that. Like I said, I can't make that up. And I think a lot of times what happens is we all have bad chapters. I had a bunch of bad chapters, but so many people, they take the pen and when they're writing their story and they just throw it down the freaking sewer drain, or they throw it like in the woods. And they said, you know what? I give up. I'm done trying. And for me, I was just inspired enough to go in the woods, find that pen, dig it out, and just keep rewriting my story.
Yeah.
Keep helping other people. And that's what it's about for me right now, is giving back, sharing my message, helping people. I mean, the books I write are just to help people get better. I mean, that's
everything. Well, that's why I started this podcast, because God just kept putting in my heart, you got to, it's great that you're helping this person and that person in training, right? But it was like he kept putting on my heart, like, I want you to reach outside of that, and it's not jamming down the throat. It's sharing joy. Excuse me. It's sharing joy. It's sharing peace. It's sharing the favor. It's all through the Holy Spirit that he's our helper, and that's, I don't know. I feel you. You're like, I'm loving this conversation that we're having, because I'm just like, the whole time I just want to be sitting here going, yes, yes, yes. Keep talking, Doug, because it's so true. It's life changing, and there's hope. There's so much hope in it. And and I can't help but say I'm not a person that anybody would ever want to be around if I didn't have Jesus in my life, because there's so much love. There's so much peace. People are like, you walk around like the village idiot. You're always smiling. And I'm like, because I have hope. I have joy. Do I have bad things happen? Oh my goodness, yes. I just went through some really, really yucky stuff just 2 weeks ago, and God had to help me out of that, because I almost quit because of some stuff that had happened. And I was like, no, that's not okay. I never, that's not okay to do that. And I had to go to the source and I had to say, God, I need your help. I can't do this alone. It gives you a different perspective. It just does.
Perspective is everything. And I think the moment that you're living for something greater than you, and that something greater than you has control of your life in a positive way, not saying everything's going to be positive, right? Because sometimes God wants us to learn lessons.
Yeah.
And everything becomes like part of the plan, right? I mean, we don't look at mistakes or failures anymore. We just look at them as like lessons to grow, or reason, or God wanted us to grow here, right? And then we understand that things are happening for us, not to us. We have the victor mentality. We know that people are in our lives for a reason, for a blessing or a lesson. What can we get out of this relationship? How can we give to this relationship? We learned to, give and not receive. We love to serve and not be served, like all this stuff, right? Like that's like, how much happier would you be living a life like that, just being and knowing that, like, it's okay. Like, we're going to have some bad days, but like, what's the positive in that? Like, what's the good in that? Like, there's still something out there that's, believing in us, even if we don't believe in ourselves sometimes.
Well, okay. So, going back a little bit, I was just thinking when you were saying those things, when you left prison and you were in this new quest in place, you went to, I've heard the story where you went and stayed with your grandparents, and they had strong discipline, which was good for you, and you needed it. And we all need it. Let's be clear. And that's true love. To me, that's true love. That's how with our kids, I don't know if I have a 17-year-old and a 21, well, she'll be 21 this summer. And that's discipline is everything. I'm like, I'm not your friend. I'm your mother, and I'm going to beat you until no. We didn't have to do that with my daughter. My son, he's been a joy. But when you left prison, you had to go to your how did you were only there for 9 months, or not 9 months, excuse me, 90 days or 75 days or whatever it was. When you knew you couldn't yourself back into those relationships that you had left, right? How did you disassociate yourself from those relationships so you didn't get sucked back into a life that you didn't want to be in? How did you do that?
It was time, and it was trial and error. I mean, I did go back and hang out with a lot of the same people. I mean, I didn't engage in the activities, but I realized like the further I got away from that lifestyle, and the more that stuff kind of faded away. Like I wasn't interested in partying like crazy or doing drugs, or got more into fitness, take care of my body. And also I just remembered everybody telling me in jail to like, they always were like, it's going to be hard, but you got to keep away from your old friends because environment is everything, community is everything. And if you hang around a bunch of people doing drugs, odds are you're going to do drugs. If you're hanging around a bunch of people that are all goal oriented, focusing on personal development, odds are you're going to grow as a person. So it was just thinking like that, just changing my mindset a little bit and just saying, you know what, like it's time you got to hang out with people that you have a common future with, not necessarily a common past. Cause that's one of the hardest things is you've hung around a lot of the same kids for years, years, long time. And you almost feel guilty leaving because they're like, why aren't you hanging out anymore? Why aren't you hanging around? I'm like, well, I'm sorry. Like I had nothing against with them as people. Like but I just couldn't live that lifestyle anymore.
And I think that's a hard place because that's what I struggle with other things in my life sometimes. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, where they know they need to leave an unhealthy situation, but they don't want those people to think that you don't love them anymore. And I think like, it's just it's a difficult place to be because you need to disassociate, but you don't want them to think that you don't care about them. I just said it twice in a different way. So how did you do that? Like, how did you finagle that? Did you just say, listen, I can't, I love you. I'm here for you if you want to come over here, but I'm just not going to put myself in these situations anymore?
I mean, there were some of my friends that I just kept in touch with, and we would do, we would do stuff like watch a football game or watch a movie or something like that. But when it came down to it, like they would go out and I would just kind of hang back, and I was just like, I'm just not interested. Like it's not. And the more like they would give me crap for it, I was like, you know what? And they're not meant to be in my life anymore. They were in my life for a season.
Right.
I've grown out of that season. I'm a way different person. Like I said, I was a totally different person, which is hard. You know, it's new. It's just the way it is. But that was hard, I'm sure, for people to adjust when they see you and they remember you a certain way. And then all of a sudden, like a few months go by and you're like, whoa, where'd this person come from?
Yeah.
Gotten into you. You're all healthy. You're all this and that. You don't want to go out anymore. You don't want to eat like pizza, like all this stuff. But I was on a mission, and I knew that like I remembered why I started. I remember how I felt before I went into jail, and I knew I never wanted to feel that way again. Yeah. So for me, I just had to detach myself from the situation and know that if the people who were meant to be in my life would still be there, and if they respected my new lifestyle in a way and we could do stuff. If not, oh well, like that's just the way it is, you know. And it's hard, it sucks. But I would have to life's about sacrifice, right? Like being committed and achieving hard things means there's some sacrifice required. You got to get up at 5 a.m. some days to work out. You got to like not go to the party to skip eating the pizza. You got to, make sure you're being diligent about reading. You got to be spending the money, like saving money to spend here on personal development, whatever. And for me, the sacrifice was staying in on the weekends and watching the Food Network with my grandparents, not going out, and just and then being confident in knowing that people would appear in my life going down the road. And I started to just get more involved in personal development. Like that's how I met Todd Durkin. I went to his mentorship back in 2011. 2011, 2012. It's been so long, and then I got involved. I just started like meeting new people that were passionate about the same things as I was. And that's what I think it's about. It's like, look at yourself now. Like, are these people that you see yourself living the rest of your life with? Are they the ones that are pushing you further into recovery? Are they pushing you towards your goals? Are they sharing a lot of the same passions and values with you today? Not like 5 years ago, today. Yeah. If not, it's time to reassess some people in your life.
Your alignments are everything. That is something I pray for quite often, because in this area of thought leadership, like we're in, you have to be careful who you align yourself with. And so I always ask God for the discernment and for him to bring the right alignments into my life, because sometimes things can look really good and shiny and you think, oh, that's it. That's what God wants for me. But then it ends up not being what you thought it was. And so you got to have that discernment too, and that just takes time.
And they're not bad. I mean, to me, I don't think they're bad people. It's just their lifestyle just didn't align with mine anymore. And I knew that I didn't want to get into trouble again. I didn't want to go back to jail. I didn't want to get into, like, I knew where I was when I was doing that kind of stuff. So I just couldn't do it. Like, I knew where it got me. So I was like, why would I want to go down that same path? Right. I had so many people invested in me, whether it was my grandparents, my cellmate, there's other people here and there. And plus myself, like, was I authentically going to be happy with myself? Like, internally happy, like 100% living that way. And for me, I wasn't. I knew I wasn't, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone down the path I was. And, you know, I think too many times we hold on to a lot of these things, and we're afraid to make a shift into a different environment and grow. And that's where it gets, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to get in different rooms. You got to know that, you know, sometimes life's going to suck and you're going to have to make some hard choices, but you got to make these hard choices that get you from good to great.
Yeah.
Hard choices to get from, you know, where you are now to where you want to be in 5 years. And like, I always, when I'm speaking to people about this subject, because this is a question I get a lot, because everybody deals with this, right? Is like, would you rather be somebody who sacrificed a few years of your life to change your relationships, change your friends, which is extremely hard to do. It's extremely hard to make new friends, to make new relationships when you're younger, because you're, you know, more so emotionally immature. Plus you've stunted your growth when you're using a bunch of drugs. So like, you're just not as emotionally confident. And in today's society with technology, it also puts a damper on our ability to have one-on-one connection, because we're so used to hiding behind a screen and talking to people.
Yeah.
It's hard to like go up and walk up to some random person, like, hey, my name is Doug. You know, how long have you worked here for? What do you like to do? Like, that's awesome. Like, whatever. And would you rather be that person that sacrificed a few years, you know, worked on improving your relationships, to have better people in your life, so that when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, you can look back and be like, man, I'm so thankful that I made that sacrifice. I found new friends. I'm a great parent. I have a great job. I'm happy about myself. I'm fit. I'm healthy, all that stuff. Or the flip side is, which you're like, man, I wish I would have made better decisions and made some sacrifices, that I'm not running around now. I'm 50 years old doing the same thing. I'm like having health issues. And so it's about choices. Life's about choices.
Right. And there's pain in both. There's pain of regret, and there's pain in growth. There's pain in both. So I'd rather have the pain in growth than pain and regret. And I talk about that with my kids all the time. You know, real quick, because I do have a lot of moms that listen, and myself, I'm a mom of a boy. You know, my son comes home with these ideals of what marijuana is, because, you know, it's legal now in certain places, and they have all these, you know, lies that they're told about what it does for you, and that it's just a plant. It's just herb. Let me be clear, Doug. I'm a health nut, and so we do herbs in our house. We do vitamins. So I get the health of a plant. I get that, but the THC and all that, the stuff that alters the brain in the marijuana, is now more than it was even 10 or 20 years ago. It's like 20%, where it used to be like 2%. Like, it's really, really strong. It keeps getting stronger and stronger. And the only I know these things, and my son, you know, will come home and share this stuff, and then my husband will go, no, that's not true. This is what the truth is, because he's a cop and he knows. What would you say to like a mom listening that their kid's coming home saying, Mom, it's just a plant. It's not going to hurt anybody. You know, like, it's stupid. It shouldn't be. It should be legal. That kind of stuff. What would you say to something like that? Like, just to give.
I think the biggest issue is the damage it does on your brain psychologically when you're a youth and an adolescent. I mean, it stunts your emotional development as a kid, right? And you're causing like the neural pathways to change, you know, and when you're young and your brain's not fully developed. So it's really like stunning, like I said, stunning that growth. And it's like pretty much, it's forcing kids to be able to check out easily with something that helps them feel numb. Right. And I think, like, you know, you really don't, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm biased, but, you know, a lot of kids are smoking pot to fit in, to feel more confident, to de-stress, to not be anxious about school, and their grades are slipping, right? They're becoming lazier. They're sitting on the couch, you know, watching Netflix, eating Cheetos. And, you know, and if a kid's like excelling at school and doing amazing and doing all this and doing all that, couldn't be a nicer kid, and his relationships are good, he's holding the job and he's doing this and he's smoking pot. I mean, I guess I guess you couldn't really argue that much. I mean, right? But
I don't see that, though. I don't see that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You don't really see that. So
And what about, do you think about, just because there's so much out there, we have the internet and there's so much out there, do you think education is really helpful in that sense of just saying, okay, you know what, I understand that this is the thing that everyone's doing, and that, and, you know, that it shouldn't be, you know, that it's not as bad as like smoking. This is some of the stuff that my son has said. Okay, I don't agree with it. This is just some of the stuff. Not as bad as smoking cigarettes or whatever. And alcohol's worse, and all these things. And there's, that is so far from the truth when you really start looking up the research on it. Like you said, that how it changes the brain, and it does cause depression, and it causes all these you know, emotional things to happen in your life, anxiety, and they've proven that it like increases anxiety. You're a walking example of that.
Right.
It's quit working for you, and so what did you do? You went to the next best thing, and you were snorting Oxycontin. Like that's a mind that is healthy wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go and do that right now because your mind is healthy. You're like, I don't need to do that, right? So just maybe you think like educating the kids on really what it is about. And
I mean, I would mainly like showing them what it does to their brain.
Yeah.
Like how like you're damaging the neural pathways at a young age when they're supposed to be developing like on how they respond to stress and how they respond to trauma, how they respond to adversity. And when you're smoking pot, it like checks you out from all that stuff, and you don't develop as. I mean, I have friends that you know, they're still emotionally like a teenager, and they're 30, 40 years old because of them smoking so much pot. And I always ask why. Like, what's the like? Why are you like why? Like I mean, like if you're asking a kid like why are you smoking, and then most of the answers will be like, well, so and so is doing it, or it helps me with my stress, or it helps me sleep. And you just fall down this rabbit hole. Because eventually, like we were talking about earlier, that's only going to work for so long.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to look at the next best thing. And we all know that, you know, it can be cocaine, it can be painkillers, heroin, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And that, you know, we're teaching kids to manage stress in unhealthy ways, whether it's checking technology, whether it's smoking pot, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's vaping. That's another thing. It's like vaping's
so bad.
Like, why not introduce other things that are better for them, like, you know, movement and meditation and positive community, you know, being of service, which I think can teach you at a young age that, you know, this is how you handle stress. Because, I mean, stress is never going to go away. It's going to get worse as an adult, right?
Right.
And, you know, if you're teaching a kid that they can just check out by taking a substance because it's legal, then, like, what's going to happen? You're ruining, you know, a chance of having this kid be able to really authentically deal with stuff when he gets older. Or they
I always say the more adversity you have in your life, the more gifts you have. I think it just seems like my kids are very athletically gifted, and they're very smart. And I'm not very smart. I've always struggled in school and all those things. And it seems like they've had to go through some things that most kids didn't have to go through, kind of like, you know, that sort of why me type thing. And God always brings me back to scripture on it and just says, you know, like, that's how you have to go through those things to grow. And you know, the more the gift that the more the gift that they have, the more the devil wants to like tear that down and not let it be used. You know, someone like my son, he's just so funny, and he's just so full of life. And so it just seems like to me like the struggle with him is just making sure that it stays in a good place, right? And he's got hit. He's been hit with things that is not fair in the sense of the world, right? And when he was in those low moments and wanted to quit, instead of, like you said, going and finding another source to get rid of that pain, we said, okay, how can we get a perspective of this, and how is this gonna, why you're going through this and it's not fair. I hate that word, but you know,
it's not fair, right?
Yeah. How are you going to grow through this, and what are the steps you're going to take to get through this? Because on the other side of it is a huge thing. And it's really hard when you're in that low moment and your son is like 6'2" and bawling and crying, and you know, you're just like, he's being mistreated by somebody that he respected, and you know, it doesn't matter what it looks like.
Right.
You know, it's just getting him and going, okay, in this moment, it's okay to feel this way. Now, once you're done with your little pity party, you know, let's get some perspective on this and figure out a plan of how to move through it in a healthy way, and not do it through, you know, finding other substances, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, and I think, you know, smoking pot's just a short-term solution for a long-term problem. If you got stress and you got social issues you're dealing with and that sort of thing. I mean, it's only going to put a Band-Aid on it. Eventually you're going to take that mask off, look in the mirror and say, how can I really long-term get better? And not everybody's going to get addicted. I mean, you got to remember, not everybody gets addicted to drugs, but if you're getting used to being addicted to that numbing feeling of it, you set yourself up for failure.
It's the same thing with food. It's the same thing with exercise. It's the same thing with anything. It's all related. It's what is that thing? And that's why when I'm training people, it's never about the exercise. It's never about the nutrition plan. It's because there's a million nutrition plans out there, Doug. There's a million trainers out there with programs. It's always about the relationship side of it, where it's like, oh, that's it. That's the reason. There's the block. Let's get over this thing. And it always comes out. It always does.
And I think also the thing to remember is, I'm not a scientist by all means, but the damage that smoking pot and as an adolescent causes to your brain is I think it's life changing. Mm-hmm. Just how your stuff, everything responds in your brain. It's like an increased risk, I believe, for schizophrenia and all that stuff that they're finding now, right? Mm-hmm. Because the pot's different than it was 30 years ago. I mean, that's a fact.
What I was saying earlier. It's it's stronger. Right. And I actually did get a research just recently. I was just reading it. I had it here. You know what? I actually have it underlined. It says, this is from a university study that was done. I was reading about it, about the THC and stuff. And it says in the 1970s, marijuana contained less than 2% THC. Today's marijuana routinely contains 20 to 25%. That's
Isn't that wild?
Huge difference. And it does and they've proven that it does cause schizophrenia. And in Colorado, where it's been legal for a while, the emergency room physicians have been experts on dealing with cannabis-induced psychosis. So they're seeing their emergency, they're saying that it's, legalizing it will put crime rate down, but it's not true. It actually has gone up in every single state that it's legal. Crime rate has gone up because of the damaging effects on the psychotic effects, like schizophrenia and things like that. And everybody's body chemistry is different. You know that.
We all respond to stress differently, and we all.
Right.
So, I think it's not a matter of again, I think for kids, the scare tactics don't work. I think going in and saying, oh, if you smoke pot, you're going to go to jail, or drugs are bad. It's really showing kids what it does to your brain long term.
Okay, that's good.
Especially when your brain's developing, because I know for me, it stunted my growth emotionally because I was, putting all these chemicals in my brain. That again, I'm not a science guy, but again, it was altering my state of mind.
Yeah.
It was teaching me how to deal with stress and trauma and pain in an unhealthy way that my brain was getting used to that emotionally I was far behind. And it took me a while after I stopped smoking to really regain a lot of that back. And I'm probably still a little behind just based on the numbers.
I don't believe that at all. I think God has the ability to heal. We serve a God of miracles, and he can heal anything. It's a miracle that I'm on the podcast right now talking to you because
it is.
And our relationship and stuff like that, because it's going to continue to grow and get better. When I was listening to one of your interviews, you were talking about how you barely finished high school and you've written 3 books now. And that ministered to my heart in a way where it was I've got all this stuff that God's given me to write in a book, and it keeps changing here and there, but I've got pages and pages and pages, and most of it's misspelled and most of it's horrible grammar. And, but it's it gave me hope to go, okay, you know what? It will get finished when the time is right. And I will be able to use it to help others, cause that's the only reason why we're doing what we're doing is to help others and just to get over our stuff,
Yeah. And I think it's just, you're never perfect. I just finished school last year. I wrote a letter to my mom when I was in jail, promising her that I was going to change, promising her that I was going to get better, that I wanted her to be happy when I talked to her. And I knew it was hard for her to visit me because she didn't visit me for a few months. And I said, I just said to her, I'm going to finish school because I know I need to. And last year, I just finished my 2-year degree and got magna cum laude from a community college. And it just shows run your own race. Not everybody, be yourself. Not everybody's going to finish at the same time. Not everybody, but if you try to run somebody else's race, you might somehow finish something, but it's not going to count. Like you're going to get lost somewhere because you're not running your own race. Run your own race. Just focus on being, better today than you were yesterday, and just like stop having shame about because me not completing college and having shame about that wasn't going to change anything.
Yeah.
The only thing to change it was me to actually do it. And then just, I think, when it comes to the whole pot thing, just to hammer it home one more time, like, it's just to remember, like your brain is developing a lot emotionally when you're a teenager. And if you are damaging your brain with pot, like, you're setting yourself up for a lot of danger and stuff when you're an adult, with dealing with stress, dealing with pain. And that's what you really have to focus on with kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm just really thankful to be alive, and I'm really grateful to be talking to you as well. And, whenever you're struggling with stuff, you have to do it for you. 'Cause just remember, it's you versus you in the mirror. Your biggest competitor should be the person you were yesterday. And you got to be for me, I know, like, being relentless about getting better each day, having faith in God, surrounding myself with great people, working out, helping others, being grateful, accepting responsibility for my actions, and knowing that I'm in control of my life to a certain extent. Like, I have control over a lot of things, and whatever else God has, right?
Yeah.
So there's a difference between that and just saying, well, like, I'm just not going to do anything because there's no chance. I mean, how do you never know you chance unless you try. So
I always say that, and I'm like, well, just do what you can do, and then let God take care of what you can't, and then He gets all the glory for it. Like, all the time. It's the story of my life. It literally is the story of my life. Okay, so your most, just real quick, because I know we got to wrap it up. I mean, we've been on here forever. I could talk to you for hours, but I can't. So I know you've got things to do and places to go. So your most recent book is The Heart of Recovery. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And what was the like, tell us really. I know it was hard for you to put it all together because I listened to other interviews with you with it, and you had to reach out to people and ask them how they recovered from their stuff. Is that what that one is?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been in recovery, like I said, for over a decade, and I saw with the drug epidemic getting out of control, I wanted to do what I could to help. So I wanted to create a book where it showed the top tips and tricks on what people did in recovery once they got into recovery, on how they managed it, because let's face it, once you get into recovery, it's like the real work starts. All the masks come off and you got to rebuild your life with healthy things, right? Mm-hmm. So it was like, how do you manage day-to-day stuff? How do you manage the stress, the trauma, the anxiety, the depression? When your moods, your emotions, like, how are you managing that stuff? And I believe that faith, family, and fitness are three staples that need to be in everybody's recovery. I mean, not need, but should, right? And so having like a spirituality practice that works for you, like for me, I'm Christian, but it doesn't work for you, as long as you're doing something that works for you, great. Fitness, like, are you nourishing yourself every day? Are you taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually? Family, are you surrounding yourself with people that bring the best out in you? And also, like, being aware, like, there's a question in the book that talks about like what they need to do on a daily basis to stay into recovery. And like, so I wanted to interview people from all walks of life, from celebrities to musicians to TV personalities to just everyday people, and what their top tips and tricks were and what they did, like their fitness routines, what kind of people they hung out with and why, how their relationships changed, what kind of spirituality practice they take. And that way to show that recovery and addiction doesn't discriminate against anybody, and to help people get into recovery and stay into recovery based on whatever way works for them. And so I interviewed 50 people, and it's been amazing. A lot of the people in the book have become my friends, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, just to help people, like, because I mean, the stories are very relatable to everybody.
Can you get it on Amazon?
Yeah.
And it's called The Heart of Recovery. I would highly recommend, if you're listening to this and you're interested at all in helping anyone in your life or yourself get over something. And it could be addiction to food. It could be alcohol. It could be anything. I think alcohol and food are almost, I'm not trying to say that drugs is not good, not bad, but it's almost harder because it's so easy to get. Like, there are people that have an addiction to sugar. So these steps and these things in this book can help with something like that, because that's just as bad as drugs and alcohol if it's causing you to not be healthy. What I love about your message, and I didn't even get to it, and I hate that it's taken this long to get here, and I totally forgot to bring it up earlier, but is that you focus on okay, yeah, I'm done. I don't have the drugs anymore. I'm over this. I'm clean. That's the word. But now how do we live life? Do we live it, like you said earlier, having ice cream every night, or do we put healthy things in our lives so that we can have healthy relationships and healthy lifestyle and just feel good and just and impact people in a positive way? I think that's missing from a lot of programs, is they don't focus on now what with nutrition and fitness. And you're saying stay healthy and you won't want those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's about behavior change. And I think fitness and nutrition are two of the most underutilized tools in recovery, because when you move more, you'll feel better. If you feel better, be more confident. If you're more confident, it's going to spill over in other areas of your life. And you think about like nutrition, like, there's so much to be said for how what you eat controls your blood sugar, your mood, your energy, how you talk to others. Like, and if you're like falling asleep during like group therapy sessions or group meetings, or your energy levels are going like this, like in especially in like early recovery, it's super important for you to like do everything you can to feel good about yourself, because most people don't feel too good when they're getting into recovery, because there's a lot of shame, guilt. They don't have the drugs they had before to cope with the stress. They're just implementing certain things into their lives. And like I said, we talked about the benefits of fitness, of being able to get comfortable, being uncomfortable, achieving things you never thought you could achieve. That's how you build your confidence back up. That's how you get happy, is like keeping the promises you make to yourself, whether that's getting healthy again, whether that's like not being so ashamed of, huffing and puffing when you go up and down the steps, whether it's not being ashamed that you can't do, like for me, not being able to do a push-up. And then chances are when you look better and you feel better, like you're going to get better and you're going to be healthy and you're going to be motivated to like change other areas of your life. I know for me, when I got into fitness, I still smoked cigarettes when I got out of jail, but I stopped smoking I was motivated to quit smoking cigarettes. I was motivated to be dedicated and committed to hold a job. I'd never been able to hold a job in my life, but fitness taught me a lot about commitment and being dedicated and showing up even though if you don't want to. It taught me a lot about relationships and how if I'm feeling better with myself, the people around me, they're going to feel better, and I'm going to make better choices about who I hang out with, right?
Yeah.
And things will all fall back in more into place, and it expands your options of what you can do, right? So it's so important. I could spend like hours talking with you all day about how important fitness is for recovery.
I hear you. I feel you. I totally feel you. Well, then, I mean, I tell you, I thank you so much for your time, Doug. You have no idea how much this is going to minister to so many people. And I encourage you to just keep telling your story. I encourage you to just stay passionate about it. And, and it's okay. I don't ever feel like you're ever beating anybody over the head with the faith thing. To me, you're just sharing your joy, you're sharing your peace, your favor, like the favor that you have with that judge. I mean, those are the things that happen when you surrender. It's when you can live in a prison of your mind, or a prison in a prison like you did. They both suck and they both are terrible. And so just surrendering that, and just, I don't know, I just wanted to encourage you to just not to worry about the whole faith side of it, and that just to speak freely about it. And it sounds like you've been doing that anyways. And so I wanted to encourage you in that, because sometimes we get a little, I've been attacked before, and like, well, who do you think you are? And it's like, oh, you don't get it. Like, I don't think I'm good at all. That's why I need it, And so it's just knowing that, anytime you try and help people, you're never going to go wrong. So just stay true to that and continue. And I hope we get to work together someday. I would really want to do that. I think there's something there that might happen,
Yeah. Same goes here. And I think the other thing with fitness too, is we were talking about community earlier and changing your friends and how hard that can be. There's a whole community of people you can then get realigned with when you get into fitness and health, that most of the time, people that are working on themselves, that are committed to being healthier versions of them, are making better choices in all other areas of their life. So it'd definitely be a good start as far as finding new friends.
Absolutely. All right. Well, then, where are some places we can see you and connect with you, my listeners?
So, I mean, I'm most active probably right now on Instagram. I'm at Doug_Bopst. And then I'm on Facebook. Just my personal page, my personal brand page is just Doug Bopst. And then DougBopst.com. You can get my books on there and find out more about my story and some other stuff. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. I'm going to put all those links to everything in my show notes too. So if you're listening and you didn't get that, don't worry. It'll be in the show notes. You can click on the links and I'll have everything that goes to you, Doug. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for, coming on here and just giving us advice. And I'll be praying for you and your situation with your family, and that it continues to grow and get better, and in that area.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Because we all need it. We all need it. So, all right. Well, take care.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.